Hello, and welcome back to the Real Talk with Rayne podcast. I am here with my friend Dark Ringer, who joined me last time on the last podcast. If you'd like to introduce yourself first.
Hi, I'm Darkringer. I'm a voice actor, singer, and streamer. You can follow me on any given social media at Darkringer. No underscores, all one word. If you follow me today, I'm streaming in about 90 minutes.
Nice. And that's Dark Ringer with a Wringer.
Yes.
All right. And then next we have Stuart, who is my oldest friend since the wee years of my teenage youth.
Pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'm Stuart. I'm an editor. Not much I can add to that, really, and not much from the social media landscape.
And then last but not least, we have Chloe, who is a very good friend of mine.
Hello, I'm Chloe. Not really much to say about me. Aspirant, voice actress, writer. Other than that, not much. You will not find me on socials ever.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Good luck.
It's
I've never
honestly-
social media in my life.
I feel like if I wasn't creative in the world of wanting to see my stories become reality, I would not be on social media. And it's like one of the ways to really get noticed, but I hate all of the things that come with it. So that's the only down part, I think, is I wouldn't be a part of it if I didn't feel that it would benefit a possible career. Yeah, so today we are talking about changing your perspective when it comes to making mistakes in life and having failures. So, yeah, because I know
I'm sorry.
all of us here from conversations that I've had with all of us, just on a friendship level, have experience with this.
Yours?
Yeah,
Oh.
failures. Please.
No, rip the bandage off. Rip it off.
No. But yeah, I'm trying to get us to a point where in this podcast, we're going to talk about how we can see these failures as ways to learn and expand our knowledge and who we are as people rather than being so critical and horrible to ourselves when we make the mistakes that we do. Obviously, we have examples of people in the world, not just social media, but in the world, who make very bad choices and don't care. So we're not really talking about those people because those people definitely don't have any acknowledgement of what they've done wrong. I'm talking about people who can actually self-reflect and who have the ability to think back on their actions and try to see it from a place of growth rather than a place of this is why I suck as a human being.
Oh my gosh, people being people?
Yeah, people having
Unrealistic.
flaws.
Oh my gosh. How
Yeah,
wow.
imagine having flaws. Can't relate.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like
Oh my
seriously,
God.
get out of here with those flaws. Flaws don't need them. They don't exist in my line of work.
To all my California girls, I'm sorry that I default to your accent. I don't mean any offense. I just grew up in
Yes, she
Arizona.
does.
I grew up in Arizona and I was around so many Valley Girl acts. I'm so good at it now that it just comes naturally. So I'm sorry. But
No, it's the straight girl voice.
it's yeah, that too. But yeah, so I think one of the things that I would like to do is if we can all think of a very big moment in our lives that we made a mistake and that we had to reflect on that mistake, how that changed us as a person, how we learned from it and unpack that a little bit. So I don't know. I could go first. I can have one of you guys go first. It's really, you're the guests. So I can. So what would you say is the experience that comes to mind that you would consider your biggest failure?
You know what? 2 years ago,
Hmm.
I had an experience with some garbage customer, and it was the end of the day. I'd been working for almost 9 hours. And so I just, without a prompt, messaged my bro being like, it should be legal to unalive customers because holy crap. And I guess they weren't mentally prepared for that.
Yeah.
And their partner went off at me, which fair.
Okay. So
I
you
won't say
feel
I'm
like
less
Yeah, what do you feel about how that whole situation was handled? Why do you think it's a failure?
Because I should have taken my bro's feelings into account first before just being like, what if I did several murders?
Okay. What do you think could have been different? What do you think you could have done differently?
Asked him if he was like in a position for me to vent or in the right mental state for me to vent.
So why is that important? Like, why do we think it's important to ask somebody if they're mentally ready to engage in that kind of conversation with us?
Because we don't know at any given time what the other person might be going through. Maybe they're also dealing with crap. Maybe they also want to unalive customers.
So now, seeing that you've reflected on those experiences, how do you think it's changed you as a person?
I won't say I'm less angry now, but I'm able to express it more healthfully. Is healthfully a word?
Yeah.
Not
Well,
all the time, but
yeah.
most of the time.
Flaws are something that we all have, and sometimes we have our moments, and it's human nature. We're never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for sharing.
It should be
Well,
able to unalive customers, though.
Stuart,
So close and yet so far.
this will be the last time Darkbringer is on the podcast.
Love you too, Rayne.
Stuart, what comes to mind for one of your biggest failures and how it shaped you as a person?
Are we going here? Are we really going here? Like,
Just a groan. Just for
I could pick from, but none that are like jumping out as the first choice kind of deal.
Do you need some time to think? I can pop in.
If you want to, but just in general, I just think on the entire point of the entire discussion, as we said right at the beginning, like failure is normal. It's something that we do. We're not going to escape that. The important thing for me is to approach it with a problem solving approach, which is hard when you're right in the middle of it.
Mhm.
But the important thing is more to look at this and go, it's simple to say learn from it, but really learn from it. Why did it happen? What did I do that was wrong? Why did I do the thing that was wrong? How do I not do that next time? What was the right thing to do, and how do I do the right thing next time? It's hard. It's sometimes a hard question, especially depending on the failure, but that seems to be the more important thing to me. Is it's not the specific failure. Any given failure is fine, but just as long as you're learning from that failure, because otherwise, what was the point of the failure? You screwed up and you're going to screw up again, possibly the exact same way again. To me, that's not a healthy mindset. To me, that's a problematic mindset.
Right. That also brings up the way of being able to take accountability and self-reflecting, whereas you have people who can't or won't, I guess is the better word, will not take accountability. What would be your advice? And I know you've grown a lot since when I first met. I have grown a lot, and we've been through our share of differences in our friendship. Putting it lightly.
Disagreements in a friendship? No.
Yeah, we're totally not closer now as adults, and you were a bridesman in my wedding. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. But what do you think helped you in those moments? Not necessarily with our friendship, but just in general. How do you think you did?
Actually, that's just interesting you bring that up too.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to, but it's also still interesting because when you're figuring that out, a choice has to be made,
Mm-hmm.
and the choice. It's possible to make wrong choices, and there's choices where all choices are wrong, and there's choices where there is no wrong choice. But I think the other thing is you have to think about it feels a little cold to say it this way, or just very sterile. But what is my objective, right?
Mm.
Like that's the thing. What is my objective here? In the case of our history, my objective was I want to preserve this friendship. The choices I made, the question of where did I make the mistake has to come into where did I do the thing that damaged the friendship? How do I not do those things next time? Different people in different circumstances, they may decide that the mistake was the relationship or the friendship in the first place, and they may decide that was the mistake and that the correct choice therefore is to end that friendship. You've made that decision many times, I know. So it comes down to your objective. What was your objective? And sometimes you got to step back as well and go, was I correct? Did I choose the objective correctly? Again, you have people in toxic and abusive relationships as well who will be going on, and they're going to say, "No, my objective is the same as what mine was, to maintain the relationship." But that isn't necessarily. It's introspection. Like, that's the thing. Ask yourself, what is it that you want, and what are you willing to do to get what you want?
Yeah, and on the same thought too, that person that's on the other side of that friendship also has to be receptive to communication and growth. And I think a lot of, especially recently with things that have happened with me and some friendships that have fallen out, a lot of the times I've realized that it's not necessarily because anybody's a bad person or that they're like out to get you or anything like that. It's because they're not willing to meet you in the middle. They're not willing to take a step back and see things from your point of view. Because when you put yourself in somebody else's shoes, especially since you don't know what they experience every day, you don't know what's going through their mind, factoring in physical health, mental health, like things that some people use as a shield and a reason to be like, you can't be mad at me because blah. I don't stand by that. Like, I deal with a lot of issues myself, mentally and physically. And for the longest time when I was younger, I definitely was very toxic when I was younger and used a lot of my mental health as I'm going to win this argument and I'm going to be right because I have anxiety or whatever. And so my anger at this person is completely justified when in reality, it's not. It's you need to come at it from a place of this is also a person who has their own set of ideas and feelings and experiences that I may be able to relate to, but I won't necessarily fully understand unless I live them exactly the way that they went through them. So it's about a connection and it's about speaking to each other in in an area of respect with energy that is matched, that's positive, and wanting to move forward with a growth mindset, not I want to win this argument and I want to be right. Because that I think is what tears apart a lot of friendships and tore apart a lot of my friendships when I was younger. I do think that a lot of it's people can fall out because you're both wrong in some way. I don't think anybody's ever completely in the right or completely in the wrong unless we're looking at really horrible situations. And then that's a whole different story. But yeah, like terms of just communication with friends, I think it comes with time and it comes with life experience and it comes with learning that the world doesn't revolve around you. And no, and like your experiences are valid. That doesn't mean that the other person's experiences aren't valid either. That doesn't mean that how they perceive the situation with you isn't valid to them and isn't truth to them. So it really comes down to being able to talk and have a conversation where you're not trying to win, you're trying to understand. And that way you can know each other a little bit better in a way that when it happens again in the future or happens a little differently, and you have another spiff or whatever you want to call it, you have a new way to think about how that person might be feeling and how that may have caused the situation, how your actions could have triggered the situation, and then their actions could have triggered your response. And it's just a circle, but it's never as black and white as you started it. This is your fault.
Oh, never that simple.
Never that black and white.
So yeah, I also, after my little spiel, I would like to hand it over to Chloe. If Stuart, if you're finished with,
That's good.
you're all good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, perfect. Chloe, would you like to share?
Yes, I would. I'm not sure which story to tell. I've got two really good stories that have both have very powerful messages to them. One you might know, and one I have not told you. Which do you feel would be better for the podcast?
Maybe the one you haven't told me.
For context, I went to a private school, like a college preparatory school, for the last 2 years of my high school career. because I was, how should I put this? I was a little, not in terms of a hellraiser or anything like that. I was the kid who had no motivation whatsoever. I had no motivation to do well in school. I had no motivation to do hardly anything other than video games because ADHD at a very young age of 18 and 19 is not all that great because your mind is currently always glumps onto the thing that gives your brain the most stimulation. For me, it was video games. A little bit more context. I'm so sorry. I will get to my point. I promise you. This is a very long story. So please grab your popcorn and settle in. I am so sorry.
Get yourself a snack, have some water.
Yeah, no, hydrate. This is your reminder to hydrate something.
Absolutely.
Posture check.
Yes.
Posture check. Yes, there will be no slouchers here.
Keep your eyes on the road, and if you're on the toilet, you can do it.
Also, please pay attention to the road. I am not responsible for anyone who does something naughty or bad on the road. Thank you.
If you're going
Okay.
to the toilet on the road, I'm sorry. Anyway,
Second of all, how are you doing that?
they have their ways. But
You opened my eyes to something so new. Anyway, private school.
Anywho.
Little rambunctious little scamp. All right,
Yeah.
we're all caught up. I had this teacher. To keep their anonymity, I will call them Mr. Gray. Mr. Gray.
Okay.
I swear.
First of all, are you in my apartment? And second, are you reading my mind?
Yes. Yes to both.
Yay, new friendship.
Wait a second. Stuart!
Yeah.
Ringer, Dark Ringer, what are you doing up there?
Oh yeah.
By the way, we haven't even known each other that long, and yet immediately it's my name that you call out.
Because I've heard the stories.
It's your fault.
Not my choice of words, but that's literally what she said. Okay, anyway, this teacher, Mr. Gray, saw that I was doing very poorly on all of my essays, that I had a spark of brilliance, as they would always say. And of course, teenager me, that went straight to my head. I went, I can do this so easily. I could do it in 15 minutes. The moral of the story is I could not do it in 15 minutes. They pulled me aside and were like, listen, I will help you with this, whatever it takes, but you got to figure out where and what you want. Me not having any direction, I went with the first thing that came to mind. My dad was a very successful businessman. He's retired now, but my mind was like, success like dad. That teacher was the catalyst through multiple coachings and a lot of life lessons. They were able to help me get into the college of my choosing. So it was literally one of the hardest things to do because it took a lot of extra time out of what I wanted to do in my off hours. But there came a time, and I was discussing this with my mother, who was made aware of this. I'm like, I understand that I haven't been really motivated at all because reasons. And this is where I want to try and go. And this teacher, Mr. Gray, is helping me. And I'm seeing some real progress. I was honestly super proud of myself. Yes, I did get a bloody big head. Whenever I was talking to my mom, look at me, I've grown so much. I'm all powerful, as the younger kids like to say. So that's pretty much my story in that matter.
Okay.
So I got a little long-winded.
Oh, what do you think would constitute as how you viewed that as a failure then, and how you see it now with a changed mindset?
How I view it now is that it is one of the greatest moments of my then short life. I was just entering my 20s, and it helped define me for who I would be throughout those years. I realized for the failure parts that mom and dad were fronting all this money to go to a college prep school, and which I don't know if anyone knows, it costs a pretty penny. It was a failure on me for not taking their feelings into account, their dedication, their connections, I guess it was, to get me there.
Gotcha.
And looking at it with the mindset I have now, which is honestly the best version of myself that I could possibly be in this moment, with a few things that I would like to change, obviously, because who doesn't want to change things? I view it as a major turning point. Otherwise, I could have been like those, those cartoons where there's this overly large man child is sitting in front of a computer gaming all day doing nothing else but
Yep.
that. Forums.
Where did you find this photo of me?
I have my ways. Don't question it.
Okay, Chloe, are you wrapped up with your example?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry if I got a little long winded there.
No,
I
it's
didn't.
fine. Mine will
I,
probably get long-winded as well.
oh,
Mine
my.
is actually pretty substantial to my life and how it shaped me as a person, especially now as an adult. And I think the main thing that I viewed as a failure was my relationship with my mother growing up.
Mm,
And I think that obviously there are a lot of different factors that go into things, but you don't understand your parents in the way that you do as an adult. And I think a lot of self work and therapy has helped me realize I can't change what the things that have happened in the past between her and I, and she can't change the things that she did incorrectly in terms of, I'm not going to get into detail, but we were at odds for a very long time with my upbringing. And it is just a lot of fighting, a lot of not understanding each other, not being able to talk to each other. And it really strained our relationship because I viewed her in a very negative light for the majority of my adolescence. And I'm sure she viewed me and in both situations, we were both probably right. Like, I was probably really difficult. And to me, she was not the best mother. But recently, something happened where I sat down with my mom, and we live across the country from each other now. But I sat on the phone with my mom, and we got to talking a little bit about something that had happened recently with me and like me being upset and sad over how a friendship ended. And my mom started listening. And it was interesting because I never really had that experience with her actually listening to me talk about something that had affected me without her having a guard up.
hmm.
And I always thought that her having that guard up when I was a child was she didn't love me, she hated me, all of these things. And in reality, it made me think, and a little light bulb went off in my head. And I asked her, "Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood?" And for the first time, she was like, "Yeah." And we started talking about it. And the way that she described how her dad, I believe he was in the Marines. I don't know. He was either a Navy SEAL or in the Marines, and I don't remember which one it was. But I know for a fact that he was very strict, very orderly. And she had mentioned that he was very hard to talk to. He's very assertive, and she didn't really have a way to talk to him about things. She felt very emotionally shut out and didn't really have a way to express those emotions. Her mother, who still, like, even up until the day that she passed, and I obviously knew both of them as a kid, and he was very stern, even in his older age, you could tell. And she's very mousy, very quiet, very little, tiny, adorable old lady. Let's go bake cookies and let's make little finger sandwiches and like the cutest person in the world, but definitely didn't realize when my mom talked to me about her as well that there were some things that happened behind closed doors with mom too that I as a kid would have never understood because I was like, but that's grandma. Like, grandma's an angel. Grandma would never. But we don't know that. Unless our parents tell us about their past and how they were raised, they are humans too. They went through the same stages that we're going through as adults. And it's almost weird when you make that connection that your parents are just people and they do deserve your respect, but also they need to respect you. And when you have those candid moments, we were talking and she said, I think a lot of how I treated you was learned behavior from how I was raised. And that emotional shutout response and not being able to emotionally connect on a level that I needed her to growing up wasn't my fault, but it wasn't necessarily her fault either because she was just doing what she knew. And I think from a human perspective, it's weird when you start thinking about other people in your lives and how you've seen them as horrible people that have shaped like negative things about you and start thinking about why that might have happened and maybe what they were going through and being more empathetic to their journey as people. And after that conversation, I told her I hope that we talk about things like this more often because 32 years later, we finally had that conversation together that I felt connected to her for the first time in 32 years. Genuinely, I never felt connected until we had that conversation. And it was life changing. Because the way I spoke to her and the way she spoke to me was mutually respectful, very much. I hear you. I understand how that was hard for you. I know I could have done things differently. And it puts everything into a new perspective of people aren't all good or bad, even if you want them to be. They're just people. And they can do really horrible things and live the rest of their lives making horrible decisions. But if they really do want to change and they really do want to try, they're going to slip up, they're going to fail, they're going to mess up. It's going to happen with all of us. Up until we die, we're never going to stop making mistakes and we're always going to keep learning. You never get too old to learn new lessons. And it opened my eyes to, oh my God, my mom's a person and not just mom. You're not just here to serve as the existence of the person that brought me into this world. You are another soul. You are a connection. You are a being with hopes and dreams that you probably didn't fulfill. There are so many different layers to people. Not to say that people can't be all bad or all good, because some people sometimes can, but you don't really ever know somebody until you spend a lot of time in person with them. And I stand by that 100%. You can't truly know somebody unless you have been in person with them for a while and you've learned all their habits and their little isms and things like that. But it was a huge moment for me because I, for the first time, felt like she listened to me and she didn't just blame me for the situation that happened that I was upset about. And the first time she actually stopped and took moments of silence before she responded, like she had been learning in therapy, queen. I was like, okay, I love that for you. I love that you're using therapy language. It's a little late, but you know what? It's still fine. It's still fine. It's still fine. It's all good. We're good. But it's not to excuse anything that she did wrong in the past because she did do a lot of wrong things with my upbringing. And I, as well as a teenager, did a lot of wrong things too. But it's seeing that connection. If you want to keep that connection strong, you need to come at it with an air of respect and understanding that regardless of who this person is, you're both human and you're both on the same level with each other. No one's better than anybody else. The only way you're going to get past something and heal and learn how to genuinely connect and thrive with other people's energy is by empathy and understanding. Holding a grudge and living in the past just made me more physically sick. Obviously, it doesn't help your mental state. It doesn't help your physical state. Like my chronic illness, for example, when I'm stressed out or I'm like triggered or something, like it's worse. It is so much worse. our brains and our bodies are very connected to each other. And I, in that moment, talking to my mom, I think was one of the first times that I felt very, I don't know what the word is, but I guess healthy almost. Like I didn't have as much like lingering pain and stuff because my brain was almost at ease. And it was like that idea that my relationship with my mother was a failure for my entire life resolved in that one conversation that was under an hour of just us being able to talk on the same level and share our experiences with each other. And then you start making those connections, not excusing the behavior. You don't ever excuse the behavior because that was still a choice that was made and it was wrong. And you should always take accountability from that and grow from that and learn to not do the same thing again. You learn why it happened and how it shapes you and this person and your connection to each other. And at the end of the day, spiritually, we're all energy and we're all connected to each other in a greater way that we will ever really know. There are moments when you really have heart to hearts with people that can change your entire perception of who they are in your life and how they have existed in your life. I think that was like, I don't even, it was incredible. And it made me feel almost like part of my inner child was healed just from that one conversation of having her be open with me and finally like letting that guard down and letting that wall down and talking to me and acknowledging things that she did wrong. And then me also acknowledging things I did wrong. And then it's almost like that relief that lifts off of you because you've really moved past it. Once you can acknowledge it to each other and move past it, it brings more space for breathing and more space for being grateful that you have these people in your life. And you can have that connection with some people and some people from your past to your future. Sometimes you can't, but when you do, it's important to see it as, I'm trying to think of the right word, but see it as beneficial to your life and as a positive experience and not necessarily as, but all these other things happen. Okay, they happen in the past though. We are focusing on the future and growing as people. So what can we do now to not repeat that? So I guess in a long-winded way, I think my biggest failure was how I perceived my upbringing just from my side and never from hers. And it's because we didn't talk, we didn't communicate. So some people never get that chance, and that's heartbreaking. And I still think that everybody is very multi-layered and relationships are multi-layered. We're never truly going to know what another person feels or why they do what they do or what they think. But that understanding, that empathy helps us get just a little bit closer to living in harmony with one another without the biases and the judgment of putting people above or below us in our lives. But that's my spiel.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Do you guys have any other thoughts on our topic today?
I feel like my one was pretty basic compared to what the rest of you guys said.
It was still good. It was still wonderful. Don't even.
Don't belittle yourself like that.
Yes.
It was the safest option for a podcast that I can think of.
Yeah, you can safe, you can go deep. Like it's ultimately whatever you're comfortable with. To me, that was like my big moment this past year where I was like, whoa, like you still do cringy things, mom. You still cringy sometimes. And sometimes I just want to be like, what are you doing?
Cringe is
Why?
eternal.
Why are you like this?
Terminal cringe.
But it's with the same air of I don't see you as a monster in my life anymore. I see you as just a flawed human being that annoys me quite often, but I still love you anyway. Just like my wife. It was lovely to speak with you guys today and to talk about some experiences about our failures and how we think about them now and how it shaped us as people. And if you guys enjoyed this podcast, please support it in any way you can. We have a Ko-fi and a Patreon, and just liking or sharing. Anything helps. Thank you to my guests. Help the algorithm. But thank you for joining me, to all my guests, Dark Ringer, Chloe, and Stuart. Hopefully you guys can join me again on the next one.
Quite possibly.
Perfect. Do you guys have any closing thoughts?
Eat your vegetables and don't talk back to your elders, no matter who they are.
And what about Dark Ringer and Stuart? Any last thoughts?
Just that on the topic of this, like I said at the beginning, like we've been saying, Trev,
Oh.
you're gonna make mistakes. Just be prepared to evaluate your own mistakes.
And self-reflection is never bad.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Thank you guys again for joining me and for spending time on the podcast. And to everybody listening, drink water, make sure you eat healthy, and do everything right by yourself, and hug somebody that you love today and tell them something you love about them, because it'll brighten their day. All right. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back soon. Bye.
Bye.